Hello and welcome to the program. This is Minority Opinions Podcast. I am your host, Hito, and today it's just going to be me. Ricardo is taking a break this week. He has some assignments due this week. He apparently has some papers to turn in, and he says he has absolutely no time to record an episode this week. What a douchebag. But I'm just kidding. He's all right. But he's a little bit busy this week, so he'll be back next week to talk about whatever movies or TV shows he saw since the last episode. So this is going to be exciting. It's a very experimental episode. It's just going to be me talking about 3 movies in total, so I hope you guys will enjoy this. Now, before we get to all the fun stuff, I just want to say thank you for your continuous support. For those of you who have just discovered our podcast, welcome. I hope you will find this entertaining and somewhat insightful. It's going to be a fun time, so stick around. And lastly, please go subscribe and review us on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a 5-star review. That really helps us out. More people that way, more people can discover this podcast. You can also follow us on Spotify, Google, Stitcher Radio. We're also on TuneIn, Player FM, Radio Public, Podcast Addicts. Pretty much every major podcast supplier network in the world. And you can tweet us. You can follow us on Twitter at MinorityOpod. You can follow my personal account if you'd like at Hito-tastic. That's Hito-tastic. And please share this on your social media. That way, your friends, maybe you have some wonderful friends who are interested in movies, but tired of listening to straight white guys just giving the same opinions about every movie. So go do that, and thank you for your support. And with all the boring stuff out of the way, let's talk some movies. So the first movie is Terminator Dark Fate, which is the latest installment in the Terminator franchise. This is the 5th Terminator sequel, obviously the best one being Terminator 2 Judgment Day. The rest is kind of disposable. I think the last one, Terminator Genesis, was a complete garbage, but I like parts of T3 and Salvation, so I don't entirely hate those movies. But now, here comes Dark Fate, which is a direct sequel to T2, so just like last year's Halloween reboot, this movie is ignoring T3 to T5. All those sequels didn't happen, don't exist in this particular universe. This movie starts off in Mexico City. A young Mexican girl is being chased by a killing machine sent from the future. This time it's not Skynet, it's a thing called Legion. It's sort of like what they did with The Force Awakens. Like, it's not the Empire anymore, it's this new thing called the First Order. Same thing, not Skynet, but it's a different version of Skynet with a different name. And she's a very important person. The future depends on her. She is the Sarah Connor figure from the first Terminator movie. So the Resistance sends an enhanced human from the future to protect her. And along the way, we meet Linda Hamilton as Sarah Connor and Arnold Schwarzenegger as T-800. Now, everybody's saying that this is the best Terminator movie since T2. And I don't know if that's really the case. I think as a Terminator movie, I thought T3 was better at handling its world and the characters. And as an action movie, I thought Salvation was much more entertaining. This movie is fine. It's okay. It's a decent action movie. Some of the action set pieces are very well done. The first 30 minutes of the movie is pretty thrilling. There is this car chase on the highway that was really awesome. And there's some battle in a factory that made me go, ooh, this is really cool. But the rest of the movie just I don't know, it's just there. It doesn't really do anything interesting with the world of it. I think the opening of this movie is going to piss off a lot of people, and it already has. That's a very divisive opening. And some people will say that's very audacious. Others will say, well, that really sucks. And Mackenzie Davis is great. I've been a fan of her since I saw her in this little movie called Breathe In. And she's great. There wasn't anything particularly unique about this movie. It just felt like another Terminator sequel that just happened. Watching this movie is like eating popcorn. It's tasty when you're eating it, but aside from some butter and salt, there's no flavor. You don't really taste the actual corn. It's not very nutritious. It makes really loud noise and it gets stuck in your teeth. You don't want the thing to get stuck in your teeth, but it does anyway, and it kind of hurts sometimes. And 30 minutes later, you realize that you've only finished like 2/3 of it and you decide to throw away the rest of it. That's what this movie felt like. It was so disposable. It felt pointless. Like, while I was watching it, I was entertained. Like, there's a lot of action. Almost every single one of them made me go, ooh, that's cool. Oh, that's a big explosion. Ooh, that's a nice helicopter chase scene. Ooh, Arnie is shooting guns. Oh, Linda Hamilton is shooting guns. And there's a lot of that. But I don't know, the visual effects didn't wow me. Like, in the way that, like, T2 is groundbreaking on so many levels, and the visual effects are amazing, even to this day. Almost 20 years later, we have better visual effects, but somehow what they do with Rev 9, which is the main villain Terminator of the movie, looks so dated and boring. While I was in the theater, I was entertained. The first 30 minutes, like I said, is really fun. But it loses its momentum after that, and there's no sense of jeopardy. There's no sense of urgency throughout the movie. And the last sort of 20 to 25 minutes, I was kind of zoned out. It was just a lot of computer-generated explosions and computer-generated figures punching each other. And I was disappointed, considering this was directed by Tim Miller, who did the first Deadpool. I love that movie. I don't know, there was no personality to it. It just felt like this was a movie made in a factory, like made by machines, no pun intended. I said a very similar thing when I talked about Disney's Aladdin. You can check out the previous episodes to find out what I said about, that movie. But it really felt like this was made by a committee, just made by studios. Even though James Cameron is involved in the creative process, he gets a story and producer credits. But I don't know, it just felt like I couldn't stop thinking, what's the point of this? Like, we already have 2 great Terminator movies, so just let's leave this franchise alone. Like, let's not make any more Terminator sequel. We're okay. We have 2 great movies, 2 interesting sequels. We're good. We're good. Just no more of these, please. So Terminator Dark Fate was really disappointing. I can't really recommend this. Wait until it comes out on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime, whatever subscription or whatever streaming services you are subscribed to. I wouldn't recommend renting it on Google Play or Amazon or anything. Like, I don't think it's worth it. So ignore this movie until it comes out on streaming services. That's what I would recommend. Next up is a Netflix film. So if you have a Netflix account, you can watch it from anywhere in the world. Just borrow a password from your parents, siblings, uncles, friends, just whoever. It's called The King, starring Timothée Chalamet, everyone's favorite white dude at the moment. And this is an adaptation of William Shakespeare's Henriade, and it is a story of King Henry V and how he was forced to become a king of England. Now, historical drama is one of my least favorite genres on the planet. I understand the appeal of films like Gladiator, Braveheart, Kingdom of Heaven, movies like that, but I don't know, it's never really been my thing. I just find I'm not interested in, white people, white men in particular, wearing this, heavy armor and swinging swords and killing people and just showing courage and valor and all kinds of masculine warrior bullshit. I'm just not into that. I have the same problem with Japanese historical dramas as well. I'm not really into them. I don't care about stories from the 14th or 15th century, onward. I'm just not into historical dramas in which people just kill each other to, I don't know, take the throne or whatever. I'm not that guy. I don't care about masculinity. I went into this movie thinking, okay, this is going to be another one of those movies. And actually, this was surprisingly more mature and thoughtful compared to those movies that I mentioned. Oftentimes, films like this don't deal with the consequences of colonialism or imperialism. We see all these guys, kings or, queens, someone in power invading another country and killing all these people for nothing, just other than, expanding their territory and gaining more power. But it never really deals with the result of these things, what those horrific things can bring to a country, to its people. This movie actually deals with that. There's a scene in the second half of the film where somebody asks Henry whether or not his campaign is worth it, this campaign against France. And this person asks, are you willing to sacrifice your own people just because somebody made fun of you? That these wars are driven by irrational and prideful men who only, think about themselves. What's the purpose of this campaign? What do you get out of it? I think those questions don't get asked enough in this type of film, and I found that really refreshing. It also frames Timothée Chalamet in a really sexy way. We see a lot of shirtless Timothée in the first 30 minutes. And his back and forth with Joel Edgerton, who also co-wrote the script, is really funny. He's definitely a comedic relief. And Robert Pattinson is hilarious in this film. He plays Dauphin, but he's basically the main antagonist, a French prince. And there is this one scene where he tells Henry V about the size of his dick. And that scene was really funny. You might have seen this on Twitter because somebody posted it, but he's really funny in this. And this movie looks amazing. Just from the visual standpoint, it's a gorgeous movie to look at. I also liked Nicolas Britell's score. It's very subtle yet impactful, emotionally. Yes, there are moments of bloody violence and guts and mud stuff that a lot of people expect from this kind of movie. But at the heart of it is a coming-of-age story. And that's what I really liked about The King. It's about this young man trying to, grow up, trying to lead a country, stop being this selfish prince. And it asks some serious moral questions. It talks about the pointless nature of war. So I was really impressed by this film and pleasantly surprised by how much I liked it. It's a bit too long. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and you definitely feel the runtime. And I did find the climactic action sequence rather tiresome, but but overall, I thought this was really interesting, and you should definitely give it a go. And finally, let's talk about a little movie called It Chapter 2, which is the sequel to 2017's It. It was a massive success. A lot of people enjoyed it. And now we're getting the second part. So this takes place 27 years after the events of the first movie. The Losers Club, the Losers kids are all grown up. Bill became a screenwriter. Beverly is married to this rich guy who is abusive both physically and emotionally. Ben became this successful architect. Richie is now a famous comedian. Eddie is now married to a woman who resembles his mom. And Stanley is, Stanley. There's not much to say because, spoiler alert, he dies in the first 20 minutes of the movie. And Mike is the only one who stayed in Derry, and he calls everybody that Pennywise is back and that we made a blood oath. If it ever comes back, we'll come back to Derry and kill it just for good. And we're doing this right now. So that's the plot of the movie. Now, I wasn't the biggest fan of the first movie. I thought it was a decent funhouse movie. It was more of a coming of age story than it is a horror movie. I thought Bill Skarsgård was excellent as Pennywise. He was so good in the movie. I liked it enough, so I went to see this, and I actually liked this one slightly better. I do think the movie is a bit too long. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes. This easily could have been 220 or 215. There are sections in the film that feel very episodic. These characters get back to Derry, but they go separate ways to retread their past. Each encounter Pennywise in different shapes and forms. And while those individual moments were entertaining, as a whole, I did feel okay, you gotta wrap this thing up. You gotta move on really quickly. And the movie is kind of all over the place. It's overstuffed. There's a lot of backstories and exposition that go on and on and on for a while. But the cast is great. I think they have great chemistry with each other. I thought Bill Skarsgård was amazing once again. And there are some scares that were pretty effective. There are a couple of kids' death in the movie. There was only one child death scene in the first one. We see Georgie just getting eaten kind of in the beginning of the movie. But in this one, Pennywise kills a couple of kids, and he eats their faces, and blood splatters everywhere. And that was kind of shocking, and that was definitely meant to be shocking. So it was pretty effective. But if you are someone who doesn't like seeing kids getting killed in movies, maybe skip this one. But the thing I really liked about this film is the way it handled trauma. This movie is about these adults trying to deal with their past trauma, childhood trauma. And as someone who had a tough time growing up, I definitely connected with the way these people deal with their experiences. Now, I'm sure some experts would say, well, the depiction of trauma in this movie is very surface level. It doesn't delve deep into the psychological aspect of it. And I'm sure that's valid. But for me, I definitely saw myself in these characters. I've had so many people telling me that, I'm holding on to these terrible memories, that, I have to let go of these things, and that somehow I'm trying not to forget those terrible experiences. But what they don't understand, the thing they don't understand about trauma and abuse is that it's never going to go away. It becomes part of you. It becomes part of your skin. It's like like trying to let go of it is like trying to cut out a piece of your skin. But, you know, no matter how hard you try, it's still painful. It's not going to go away. You know, cutting off a part of your skin only creates more scars. So I'm sure a lot of psychologists and other people will disagree about my opinions, but that's how I feel about it. And I thought this movie handled that aspect really well. Some people get better at handling these things as they get older, but it's never going to go away. That's the thing, like, a lot of people need to know. And for a film of this size, I thought they did a really good job of showing what people go through. So overall, I enjoyed it. There are definitely problems, but it was certainly better than Joker, you know, the way they handled trauma and mental health and all those things. And that is the end of this week's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing what I had to say about these movies. I would definitely recommend seeing The King on Netflix and It Chapter 2 if it intrigues you. And make sure to come back next week for more movie reviews, more, delightful conversations with Ricardo. And yeah, thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys next week.